Well then, folks, Football Manager 2023 is officially announced. And as part of the announcement, they didn't announce any new features or stuff like that, which leaves me as a Football Manager content creator with only one realistic option. Rampantly speculate about stuff that I think might be in the games that'd be quite cool and I'd quite like it. That's what this video is. Allow the speculation to begin. Hello folks and welcome to a video in which I, LOLLUJO, a Football Manager content creator, speculate, really emphasize that word, speculate, on the things that we might be seeing new in FM23. Let me really clarify and get my disclaimer out up front. I don't know. I don't have any access to the game. I'm not a tester. I haven't been given a secret creator build. I know nothing. I have no inside information. This is basically a list of things that when I sat down for half an hour with a pen and paper and had a little bit of a think, I thought I'd quite like to see or would be quite logical to add into the game this year. So if it all ends up being correct, I still don't have any inside information, but I am a genius. If it all ends up being wrong, I was just throwing you off the scent so you didn't know about my secret info. I don't have any secret information. However, if you do want to be the first to know when we actually get some solid information out of the people over at Sports Interactive later on this month, they've said feature announcements will start happening towards the end of September. The best way to do that is to subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on. I will be reacting to the breaking news as and when it happens here in videos, so you'll be able to keep up to date with what's happening and, more importantly, what I think about what is happening. And of course, there is one thing you can do now, and that is get the game pre-ordered. We know there is the 20% pre-order bonus that Football Manager have put on, but if you order the game in advance, and you get access to the beta of the game as well, and that comes out a couple of weeks before the main game on the 8th of November. But if you pre-order using my link, which is at the top of the description below, you support the channel, and you also get an extra 5% discount off of that original 20% discount that's already there. So saving yourself a little bit more money while supporting the channel. It's win-win for everybody. And I really appreciate those of you who've done that so far, because it is a difference maker when it comes to year end for those of us supporting our families off of making silly little videos about Football Manager. But enough about that. Let's have a little think about things that we might want to see in FM23. So I'm going to be starting off with the stuff that I think is most likely to happen. And as we get further and further down my list, we're going to be entering further and further into the realms of fantasy feature picking and stuff that, as much as I think it would be cool, I don't see it happening, or at the very least happening now. So starting from the thing that I think is most likely to happen, I've been saying this for 2 or 3 years now, there was always, in my mind, one big obvious feature that has to be a part of FM23. Surely it has to be part of FM23. The Football Manager that releases 12 days before a World Cup. Surely this is the year that they make international management good. Because if you've managed an international team in Football Manager ever, you'll know it's kind of not very good at the moment. It is it's boring. There's not a lot that goes on. I don't, as much as I'm saying I'd like to see them fix international management in the game, I don't really know how you go about fixing it. I've got a couple of sort of quality of life suggestions. One thing I would like to see them do is allow you as manager of your international football team to be in control of training while you're away on internationals. Because one of the most frustrating things for me whenever I've done international management is when you're off at a World Cup and the games are coming every 2 or 3 days, because you can't rest the players between the games and you've not got any control or impact on training whatsoever. Your players are constantly tired. So by the time you get through to the quarterfinals, you've got the choice of sticking the reserves out, doing a kind of half and half reserves first teamers to try and save some players for the semis, or just having a bunch of players that are exhausted, starting to pick up injuries, not playing as well. And if anything, it's become, the problem has become exacerbated since they've really emphasized the whole players start making mistakes, the tireder they get thing, that I think came into the game in FM22. And it basically means that if you have a run through to the World Cup final, not just your team, it doesn't just affect you, it affects everybody. But everybody is playing really rotated teams that are not playing very well by the time they get to the World Cup final. And it's just weird. And it's not how World Cups are. So that's an easy fix. Let us control the training. Let us rest our players. That's an easy fix when it comes to international football. I don't know how you fix the rest of it. This is why I'm just a content creator and not involved in the creation of the game itself, because I guess sort of at its core, international football management is pretty boring. You play, 10 games a year in a busy year, and there's a lot of gaps between them, and it's not like you can wave a magic wand and make the game skip from match to match to match, because it still has to do all the simulation stuff in between. The Premier League, all the other leagues. I'm English and I've acknowledged the Premier League and the others. I know there are other leagues out there in the world, but domestic football still has to take place because you're having to pick those players from somewhere. And that takes time. If you've ever holidayed forward a season or two in Football Manager, you'll know that it's not just a case of hitting holiday a year and it's just boom, there, you're at the end of the season. Depending on the speed of your computer, it can be a 10, 15 minute wait for a full season to holiday through in the early seasons. And once you get 10 or 20 years into a save, which you could conceivably do relatively quickly in an international management job that's working properly, those waits get longer and longer and longer. And of course, that means that when you're managing internationally, the wait between your matches gets longer and longer and longer. And then for me, I get a little bit of a disconnect from the team anyway, because more often than not, I'm not really scouting the players and picking the players myself. I'm kind of going with the recommended squad that my assistant manager is recommending to me, and then just playing the matches and winning them. International football in general is pretty boring. I don't know how they make it more interesting, but if they're ever going to do it, if it's ever going to be a focus, it just feels like this year should be the focus. So please make international football good, Football Manager, this year. Please and thank you. This next one they could do as a new feature, or they could just fix something in the background and it would almost feel like a new feature. I'm talking about the set piece creator, because the set piece creator in the game has a couple of problems. Problem number one is it's not great to begin with. The fact that you have to pick the players by position for where you're going to put them means you get in these silly situations where you might have your tall centre forward stood at the near post at the start of the match, but if midway through the match you add a second striker, you change your formation slightly, it could mean that player is now moved out to be hovering outside of the area just because of how that's adjusted. It doesn't pick players for positions by player, it does it by position. So if you swap the position, you end up losing the player and constantly having to fiddle with your set pieces. And that side of things is just fiddly anyway. That feels like it could be easily fixed by just having it by player, the way it is on the set piece taker screen. We don't go on there and say, I want my left back to take corners. You pick the players and you have a list of players in order of importance who you want to take those set pieces. And I think you could do that on the positions when they're receiving the set pieces as well, and make it so that at the near post, I've always got my big strong boy, because that's where I want my big strong boy. But the other issue that the set piece creator has is that it is actually broken as well. I'm sure we've all had this issue, and this issue is not just unique to the set piece creator. You sometimes get it on the tactics screen as well, where you try and move a player and they just jump straight back, and it won't actually let you move a player. And you have to go and take off all of your corner takers, remove them all from the list, then go back in. Then you can move the players around on the set piece creator screen again, then go back and add in your corner takers again. But of course, as soon as you go from first choice corner taker to second choice corner taker, unless you've been clever and set up your list of corner takers to all be players who play in the same position, as soon as it goes, well, my central midfielder isn't taking corners now because he's been substituted, so now my right winger's taking them. And all of a sudden, again, because we're doing the set piece by position, it's all broken now, because the right winger who you have got stood at the far post initially is now taking the corner, and it could just be so much better. And set pieces are a big thing in modern football. Set piece coaches are a big thing in modern football. Set piece coach should be a non-player role in the game now. We've got things like sports scientists, performance analysts, all these fancy new modern jobs that you get within football. I think it's time we got set piece coaches, and along with bringing the set piece coaches in as a new role, I think we need to fix how the current set piece creator works, or probably in an ideal world, completely revamp it and make it good and make it so that set pieces can be used in a similar fashion to how they're used in real life. And maybe even as part of it, just tone down how overpowered some elements of it are. Near post corners. I'm looking at you. They don't need to be as powerful as they are. But at the moment, it kind of strikes that balance between, well, if they weren't, I don't think I'd ever score from a corner, because the rest of the time it's just an absolute free-for-all. So I think there's a lot of work that could be done on the set-piece creator and set-piece coaching and that kind of stuff. And fingers crossed, that is something that is being worked on, because I think, to me, it's pretty obvious that is due a revamp. Another thing that seems pretty obvious to me off the back of real-world football is the entire transfer system, and the way it works in FM now seems very different to the entire transfer system and the way it works in real life. The rise of Fabrizio Romano on Twitter, and how every single tweet that he puts out is so-and-so has agreed terms with X club, and now the two clubs need to agree a fee. And I read those tweets as a Football Manager player, and every time I read them, it's like, well, this is tapping up, isn't it? Is this tapping up? This always used to be called tapping up. I swear it always used to be a thing that you couldn't agree terms with a player until a fee had been agreed with the clubs. It seems like we now live in opposite land, and it is completely the norm for players to have a full contract agreed with a club before an offer has even been made for them. That just seems to be how things are done in real football now, and that is not how things are done in Football Manager. And I think that needs to be shuffled around. We've seen agents start to get more and more power within FM over the last couple of years. I think that probably needs ramping up even further to reflect real life football. And I think we probably need to turn the transfer system completely on its head and allow us to approach players, or approach agents to approach players is probably more realistically how it actually works. But allow us to have these conversations with agents and players about potential signings, get an idea if they want to join us, maybe even get a confirmed contract agreement in place. Rafinha with Barcelona, perfect example. The contract's agreed months before they even make an offer for him. But we should be able to do that. And then once we know we're going to get the player, at that point, we can go and agree a fee with the clubs and have the players able to force through their moves a little bit more effectively, like they're able to in real life. Yeah, it's going to be really annoying when it's our player doing it, but we'll also benefit from the other side. And when we're bringing in players, we'll be able to annoy the AI. And who doesn't want to annoy the AI? It would also eliminate one of my biggest frustrations that I have with FM. You know, I like a loan in Football Manager, and it really, really frustrates me when you have a player in on loan who you've maybe had on loan for a couple of years. They're a key part of your team. You've noticed that they're out of contract with their parent club in the summer, but it's a domestic loan, so you can't make them a contract offer until the 1st of July when their contract with their parent club expires. You fully intend to. They're a key player. You can afford them. It's all going to be great. But then they go and sign a contract for an MLS club in the middle of February because no one else is offering them a deal. And it's like, this just wouldn't happen in real life. I am absolutely going to have a conversation with that player and say to them, look, you've got a place here next year. I'm going to offer you a contract. Even if I can't have it fully signed and sealed at that point, I should at least be able to talk to the player, talk to the agent and say, this is the contract we're going to be offering you. If we offer you this contract, which we're going to offer you, are you going to sign it? And have like an informal agreement in place with players before their contracts expire, so they don't go off and sign for some ridiculous club that they'd never signed for in reality, and they can actually stick at the club that wants them, i.e. your club. I want to be able to keep these players. That really frustrates me. And I guess while we're on the topic of transfers, I couldn't really talk about changing the transfer system in Football Manager without addressing the never, never. You know, I like to sign my players on installments, and there's two schools of thought. The ones who think I'm exploiting weaknesses in the game AI, and those who are completely on my side and say, yeah, all transfers in real life are done on installments. It's fine. I'd quite like it to have those 2 points of view meet in the middle and have the game really properly reflect installments, because as much as I agree that all contracts, all player transfers or the vast majority of transfers in real life are done in installments, And in theory, if you buy someone for, say, 18 million over 3 years worth of installments in FM, in theory, there's £6 million allocated each year, and you're paying that out each year, and it should come off your future transfer budget each year. I don't think it really does. I don't think it really works that way. The amount of times I've gone into a transfer window with £30 million of a transfer budget, spent 150 million, and the comments is full of like, yeah, well, you won't be able to buy anybody next year. And then next year I get another 30-40 million pound transfer budget, and it's like, well, that's made no difference, then you may as well. And that's why it is seen as exploiting the system, because it feels like you can kind of just put all of your purchases on installments and never really have to worry about it. Because even if your bank balance gets £200 million overdrawn, you know you're going to get the mysterious soft drinks partnership to come and rescue you. And you're never actually going to go into administration, fail FFP, which I get they can't do. They can't have a real life football club go bankrupt. It's not a good look for these officially licensed teams to have them going out of business, even within a simulation. So I get why they don't allow that to happen. But there must be a better way of stopping it getting to the point where that could happen. And that would be really properly allocating installments. I won't say correctly, because if you actually do it the way it's done correctly, it gets to be quite complicated accounting stuff that we don't need in the game. But you need to feel more of an impact of doing it as a player. If you're buying a player for £100 million and only £10 million of that is up front, you should feel the other 90 at some point. At the moment, I don't think you really do. Women's football. They've talked about it for a couple of years. I think it was announced 2 years ago that women's football is coming. So this one, I don't think this is... I don't think I'm saying anything particularly controversial. It would be pretty cool to have women's football in the game this year. I don't know if it is due this year. I know the Reddit leak that came out earlier in the week that was total bobbins, talked about women's football as a standalone thing, international only. I really hope they've not gone down that route, because I think the only way introducing women's football to FM works is if it's all part of the same ecosystem and part of the same universe, and you can move between a men's club and a women's club and maybe start a career in the National League North and get a job with a women's team and then get a job in the championship and move around between them. And I think as long as it's properly integrated, people will accept it and people will use it. If it's what was mentioned in this supposed Reddit leak of it being standalone, so not part of the main game, you have to load a different part of the game that's only got women's football in. And even then, it's only international women's football. That's rubbish. That's just what FIFA did. And that was rubbish, because nobody did that either. So I don't think you can do it that way. So if that's all they've got ready, I urge them to just sit on it for a year and wait until they can fully integrate it. I do get why now is the perfect time to bring women's football into the game. I would suggest a majority of the player base is still UK based, although I guess that's changing rapidly as more and more international players come on board. But I would imagine there's rather a lot of the user base who are very aware of the fact that England have just won the Euros and more interested in women's football than they've ever been before, and probably are likely to be for the next few years. You get that post-tournament win boost. Now's a great time to get women's football in the game, because people are talking about it and looking at it and thinking about it. But if it's not ready, don't bring it in half finished. We need it fully integrated or not at all. I hope it's this year. If they have to wait a year to do it properly, I'd prefer that, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. There are a lot of meatheads out there who have things to say on the internet who are really ready to just knock it however good it is when it happens. So if it comes out and it's rubbish, it really is setting itself up for a fall further on. So let's hope if it comes, it's fully integrated and it's great. If it's not ready, it doesn't come. That's why I've got it a little bit further down my list, because I feel like it's really soon, based on when the job adverts for the different roles within the development of the women's side were going out. It feels like it's quick for it to be ready now. If they've got it fully ready and integrated for now, that is incredible. That is very fast, excellent work. I feel like it's probably going to be another year, though. And that's where we kind of get towards the end of my realistic stuff that I actually think will probably happen. And we start to drift now more into the more would be nice to have, but probably maybe not. So I'll go through these ones a little bit quicker. Improved new gen faces. I think this one's obvious. They are awful. They're worse now than they were 10 years ago. Zealand had his face gen pack that he brought out a year or two back that shows how good it can be. Part of me thinks that within the announcement material that they put out, there were a lot of new gen style faces. So I wonder if that was like a subliminal message of, yeah, these are our new gen faces. Look how great they are. But at the same time, it could just be box art and mean nothing. But it would be really nice if we actually had some new gens that look like humans. That would be cracking. An improved match engine. Dare I even say an improved match engine? I don't need it to look like FIFA. I know there's people who moan about it every year of, oh, this looks like it's on the Mega Drive or whatever you might say. I don't need it to look like FIFA. But at the same time, it could probably look a little bit better than it does. It doesn't really look... I mean, but the 3D match engine has been out for, what, 15 years at this point? And it doesn't look like it's had 15 years worth of incremental improvement applied to it every year. If you put the two of them side by side, I think it's pretty clear which one is 2022 and which one is 2007 or whenever it came out. But at the same time, if you put them side by side and said to somebody, right, this one is the 2007 version, what year do you think this one is? And they weren't someone who was actually playing the game regularly and knew the answer, I think they'd perhaps say 2010, 2011. It's moved on a bit, but not a lot. And I understand that they try and keep the game playable on 10-year-old laptops because there's so many people out there who their only game that they play is Football Manager. They don't have a big fancy gaming rig. I get that, but at the same time, this is the year it's coming to PlayStation. It's on Xbox. It's coming back to Apple Arcade, or it's coming to Apple Arcade, coming back to iPad. It's on the Switch. It's on the mobile devices. It's becoming less a game that is majority played on 10-year-old laptops and more there's people who've got really nice high-end gaming kit that are going to expect better than the match engine that we've got currently. And I think that probably is a big job and a big overhaul and something that you can't expect to happen in one go, in 1 year. But it would be nice to start seeing some improvement towards that. And this year, why not just fix the stadiums this year? Make them look cool. Get rid of all those ambulances and things and the little park benches and the random prison walls. And I don't know, just do something. Make it look a little bit better. Stick some music in. You've got the Champions League license now. Play the song before the matches. Just do something to make it feel a little bit more like a PlayStation game. So I tell you what, if you are completely new to Football Manager, you know FIFA is rubbish. you know FIFA is the same game every year. You want something new. There's this new football game that's appeared on PlayStation. You give it a try. It turns on and it's silent and it looks like a PS2 game. I don't think you give it very long to decide if it's any good or not before you just decide this is rubbish. Yuck. And you need to put some pizzazz on it to stop that initial reaction from all these new eyes that are going to be on the game this year. And then kind of on the same note, licenses. We already know they've got the UEFA license. That was part of the initial date announcement. They had the Champions League art. They had the Europa League art. So we know they've got the Europa League and the Champions League. Presumably the Conference League comes with that. Whether the Euros comes with that, if it's a full UEFA license, if we get international teams as part of that, that could tie in very nicely to an international fix or redo. Complete speculation. I don't know if it's any more than just the Europa League and the Champions League, because that's all we've seen so far. And I do keep emphasizing no inside information here. But, you know, there's licenses up for grabs. FIFA and EA are in the midst of a split. There are licenses to be had. It would be brilliant to have the World Cup license this World Cup year. I've already said the game comes out a couple of weeks before the World Cup. If you've got the license for the World Cup, that's great because you can include that in your marketing push. It's probably also very expensive, and I get why they probably don't have it. And that's the caveat to put on all this licensing stuff. I get that it's all very expensive, and it's not just a case of just do it. It's a lot of the other stuff on this list is just do it. It might take a little bit of time, but just do it. This one it's so expensive, it might not ever be possible. The Premier League license, for example. But I do think, certainly if you're pushing it more down the route of console games and this whole subscription model within Apple Arcade, these are all versions of the game that aren't moddable. And there are a lot of people who won't want to play Football Manager if it doesn't have the player faces and the player badges and the right player kits. Because remember, this is already a game that looks a bit rubbish on the match engine and has no sound. If it also doesn't look like the footballers you know and the teams you know and the kits you know, it really is leaving a lot to the imagination. And we get it. We're Football Manager players anyway. We can suspend disbelief and cope with that. But this new audience that they're trying to bring in by going to PlayStation, for example, probably less willing to accept so much being missing from the game. So the more they can get in terms of licensing, the better. I don't know what's financially realistic and I don't know what's available. I do think it's great that they are making steps in that direction. We got the Bundesliga a couple of years ago. We've now got UEFA. Great. The more the merrier. And I guess the more the game sells and the better it does on these new platforms, the more likely they are to be able to go out and add even more licenses in the future. But they did say in the announcement that came out earlier this week that towards the end of September, they'll be making, I forget the exact wording, but it was feature and licensing announcements. So whether they've not officially announced UEFA yet and that's the licensing announcement, or whether there's more to come, who knows? But I mean, that's kind of where we have to leave it. We don't know if any of what I've just talked about is realistic or likely. Feel free to speculate amongst yourselves down in the comments section and let me know what features you'd like to see. And like I said at the start of the video, the best way to find out as soon as we start to get some concrete information, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on. As soon as feature announcements start happening, I will start telling you about them. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on any of that stuff. And if I've sold you on the game by telling you loads of imaginary features that may or may not be happening, the pre-order link is down there for you as well. Please don't pre-order it based on me telling you this stuff. This is not an announcement. This is speculation. We do the disclaimer at the end as well. Thanks for watching, folks.